Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas, sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet in Australia, and today I'm talking with Gary Bird, who's in Orange County in California. Gary, welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. Gary, you appeared on my radar because you post quite regularly in the Dental Nutshots group, and I found that what you were saying was very similar to my thoughts in dentistry in terms of how to grow a practice and where the shortcomings were. And I'd like to discuss that with you today. Tell me, how long have you been in the dental space, and what's your role with SMC National, and how it's going and where things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk with you today, and I love hopping on Dental Podcast. And I got into the dental industry over a decade ago, and I'm like most non-clinicians. So I know, Dr. David, you're a clinician. So you ended up on the dental industry very much on purpose. Usually most dentists and hygienists are influenced heavily by their family members or very close loved ones that influence them to get into the industry. Everybody else is here by accident. And I know that because on my podcast, Dental Marketing Theory, which we are about three years into that, I always ask people, how'd you get into the dental industry? And all the non-clinical folks are here by accident, and I'm no different. And so I I started a marketing agency, and a couple years in, I stumbled across a dental office that was foolish enough to allow me to touch their marketing, even though I had no idea what I was doing in dental. And we were able, over a 3-year period, to help them grow from doing about $90,000 a month in production all the way up to over $400,000 in production. They were our first dental client ever. We still work with them, and they have now 4 dentists, and they're up over that $400,000 mark, and they just crushed it, and they referred us to a lot of other practices. And I got started like in the operational side, just like you did. What the dirty little secret is about dental is that there's actually an abundance of new patients. Dental marketing is not hard. It's not hard at all, actually. It's actually very, very simple. The hard part is that you have to actually fix the things in the office to be able to grow, and no one wants to talk about those things. So I don't go out and start the phone answering podcast. Like, no one would listen, right? No one cares. Answeryourphone.com. Like, no one cares, right? Everybody cares about marketing. Everybody wants to talk about marketing. So what we do is we give people what they want so we can give them what they need. And what I mean by that is that we had this conversation. About 80% of marketing opportunities are lost before they get to the office. That's the average. And no matter how you splice the data, that's what's happening to the majority of dental practices. And so they get very, very frustrated with marketing companies, and they they fire their marketing companies all the time because it's super easy to do that. Way easier than firing your front desk or hiring more people to answer the phone. So over the years, what we've done is we've created not a foolproof. Like today, I just found out a client. We don't do contracts. So he's been with us for about 5 weeks, and he's like, I'm quitting. I didn't grow. And I just went through all of his data, and I went through all the conversations. Guess what they're converting their phone at? 50%. Guess what? They're missing the majority of their calls. So it's impossible to be successful that way. And what we try to get across, and it doesn't always happen, is that it really is a partnership. If you really want to grow, you have to partner with somebody. They have to create those opportunities, but then somebody has to work with them and help them to realize that growth is really in accountability around their team and having the systems to be able to get these patients in, and not only get them in, but get them scheduled right away. The average time to appointment here in the US is over 2 weeks that new patients are waiting, and that just drives up no-show rate and causes even more problems, right? So there's so many things that can go wrong along the patient journey. So I get the opportunity to have really fun conversations around marketing, and then really disappointing people that it's really much more complicated if you want to grow, and it boils down to the dentist holding their team accountable.
Hey, Gary, interesting stuff there. You say they want new patients, yet why is there a 2 week wait? Are they not leaving capacity every day for new patients to be slotted in? Are they just turning up and they've got a full book and they've got nowhere to put them? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so
That's
there's a very, again, this is another nuanced conversation, right? So it's like, if you go to any dentist and ask them, do they want new patients, they'll all say yes. And I understand why, because it's instant production, right? So the existing patients that you have are healthy because you've fixed a lot of their problems, so they're coming back on that hygiene schedule and they don't have issues. They're great patients, but you fixed all their problems already. So the new patients is what you want. And then marketing new patients, or new patients that are looking for you, they want to come in on the hygiene schedule because they've been trained that I should get my teeth cleaned every 6 months. That's one of the things that the dental industry has done better than any other medical profession. Is I'm going to keep coming back over and over and over and over again to come get my teeth cleaned. And so that I really applaud the dental industry of educating that across the United States. And that's awesome. However, if your schedule is full of healthy patients on your hygiene schedule and you don't have any room for new patients, that's a big problem. This is compounded when you look at the dental industry as a whole in the United States around hygienists. There's a shortage of hygienists. Like, that's just the way that it is. And so that was created through COVID, and a lot of hygienists left the industry forever, and we just haven't caught back up it yet. So you have not enough supply and a high demand, and then also you have artificial demand created inside of your office with healthy patients. You have to use block scheduling. But the problem with block scheduling is you have to plan that 6 months ahead, right? Because your existing patients are scheduling 6 months in advance. So today, the patients you saw today, Dr. David, they are scheduling 6 months down the road. So you've already filled up your book 6 months in advance. So it's a nuanced conversation. Now, there's other ways that you can get the patients in. If you're not using block scheduling and you haven't set that up. That will help you in the future. But what do you do about today? Well, you can drive patients in through the doctor schedule, but you got to have a little bit of finesse and a little bit of, flexibility with you and the patients, because if you bring them in on the doctor schedule, you can fix their problem. But what if they don't have any problem? They just want to get their teeth cleaned. That can result in a bad Google review and upset patients. So you got to be able to navigate that. The other option is to add to market for larger treatment. So you can start to market for larger treatment and drive people in on the consultation side, which can be through the doctor schedule or be through, like a treatment coordinator schedule, to see if people, what kind of treatment they're looking for, like veneers, aligners, things like that, right? And so those work great as well. However, those are much harder to convert. They're much harder to close. The bigger the treatment that you work up, the harder it is. So you're actually adding more complexity to your practice the bigger the treatment you move up. So if you're just talking about a patient getting their teeth cleaned, very easy conversation. If you're talking about all on four, it's a much more complex conversation and takes much more skill and training. So all of that to say, it is not a one size fits all. It really depends on your situation. It depends on your market. It depends on the income levels of the patients around you. It depends on the level of health of the patients around you. I'll give you another nuance. A lot of times people are like, well, if I just lived in an area that people had more money, that would solve my problems. Not necessarily, because people with more money typically have healthier mouths. So you have to learn larger treatments to serve those people with healthier mouths, right? So it's always more nuanced than what people give it credit.
Yeah, Gary, you raised a couple of really good points there. I know that when I flatlined in my practice after 5 years, I flatlined for 4 years, from years 6, 7, 8, and 9. And people kept telling me, "You're doing okay. You're doing double what the average dentist is doing." But I knew I had spaces, and I knew I wasn't getting people in. Then I met a dentist from another part of Sydney, and he was working in a lower socioeconomic area than me, and he was doing double what I was doing. So I said, "Well, he's no smarter than me. I've just got to find out what he's doing, and I've got to do that where I am." And that was the difference. And that then set my practice on over 15 years. We grew the practice by $3 million over 15 years, $3 million turnover. It went up to 3.4 million from 400. In 1996, it was doing 400. In 2011, it was doing 3.4 million. And you're right. It's about knowing what you're trying to achieve, but also, and this is what I like, and this is why I reached out to you, is that you're a numbers guy. So you do everything based on numbers and data, and not just on feeling. I have clients come to me and they say, "I feel that this is the problem." I say, "Well, let's look at the data and let's see if this is exactly what the problem really is." And so, the first thing you need to know if you need more new patients or not, because you might be turning them away. Are you listening to the calls that people, "I can't get you in. I just can't get you in. I can't get you in." And so, how many new patients do you see? How many are you turning away? And then create the space, the templates in your book, the pre-blocks, so that you can get those people in. I don't know if have you ever been to Balthazar restaurant in New York?
No.
So you go to Balthazar restaurant and you say, "Look, I haven't got a booking. Can you get me in?" They say, "Well, look, we may have a change in our bookings. You can sit by the bar and have a drink, and if we get a change, we'll put you in." Well, guess what happens? Second or third time, the penny drops and you realize that they actually don't put you in the main part of the restaurant. They have a little side part where they get you in and turn you over really quickly. So you get a Balthazar meal. They're never turning a new customer away to go to another restaurant. But in dentistry, we do that. My books are full. I'll just send them off into the ether. Send your existing customers with broken teeth off into the ether and hope that they may come back. And dentists are crazy like that. In my practice with the hygiene, it was 9 patients a day for the hygienist, 3 existing patients on recall, 3 existing patients on quarterly perio visits, 3 new patient visits every day. So we had spots to put new patients in. They either came from emergencies that the dentist saw, get them into those spots, but always make sure that we had capacity for the marketing that we were doing, or just the organic stuff that was coming in. Never turn a new patient away, because if you get somebody out of trouble or you can get them in, you're their best friend forever. So why would you burn that bridge before it was even created? Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. It is. It is crazy, and it's even more nuanced than that. Like, let's say you solve all that, and you say, "Okay, I'm going to put the blocks in, and I'm going to do all the things that you tell me to do." Well, now you have to have a team that's actually motivated to see more new patients. You know what I mean? The front desk is a tricky one, because you are actually they're usually the most underpaid person on your team is the front desk. They're usually the youngest person. If they show any skill at all, what do you do to the front desk person that has like skill and they're really good? You go move them. You're like, "Hey, you're going to do billing. You're going to do, something else. You're going to be a treatment coordinator." And then you go and hire another inexperienced young person, underpaid. This is the exact opposite of all other businesses. And what I mean by that is the highest paid people in my company, we have a decent sized team, are all the salespeople. Salespeople always make the most money. Why? Because they're the ones that are creating the opportunities to drive the engine, and they need to be motivated. And the front desk is your first line of sales. I know no one in dental likes to talk about sales, but it's true. And so you have dental's the exact opposite. While everybody else has their highest skilled, highest paid, super focused person at the front desk, and salespeople only do sales, right? In dental, it's the exact opposite. You have your lowest paid, your lowest motivated. If they are good, you're removing them. They're your youngest, least skilled, least life experience, and you're putting them in at the front desk. And that's not their only focus. They have 10 other focuses that they're also trying to do at the same time. And then people wonder why they can't grow. Well, that's why.
Yeah. It's a total lack of respect for the duty of what that person has to do. You
Yeah.
know, and you're right. The office that can separate out maybe the incoming call receiver, who is so skilled at getting people in to make the appointment and keep the appointment as well, and make the appropriate appointment. It's not just a matter of filling a white space with a name and saying, oh, my job's done, and then it's up to the doctor to work out what needs to be done. If they can triage on the call, so that the person gets off the phone saying, that lady was so nice, I'm so looking forward to meeting her when I go to that office, they're actually coming to see the front office person rather than the dentist. The dentistry is just something that they get while they're down there. They become friends with the front office people. But dentists don't realize that is such an important role. And you know, I call dental practices every day. My wife coaches in my business front office people on how to do this and how to listen for the clues, and not just to go off on a tangent, and to keep, you know, you've got to be their friend, you've got to solve their problem, and you've got to give them hope. Those are the three things that every caller needs, because nobody wakes up on a Monday morning and says, look, I've still got $500 in my wallet, I'm going to go down the dentist and see what I can buy. Nobody says that. You know, it's a grudge buy. Even if people realize that it's got to be good for them, they still begrudge going to the dentist. You know, they'd rather buy new tires than go to the dentist. You know, it's that bad. So it's really is there anything else? Is there anything else that people have to buy that they don't want to buy? You also said too that the dental industry did a really good job in that 6-month recare. And I was having dinner with a pharmacist friend of mine. He says dentistry is the envy of the pharmacy. How do you get people to keep coming back? Yeah. How do you get people to keep coming back? But, you know, what I learned a few years ago was from a hygienist in the United States that she was telling me that patients over 50, 2/3 of them go to the dentist 4 times a year. Whereas here, you know, it's like, oh, 2 times. I coached one practice in Ohio, and he said, we don't have anybody going 4 times a year. I said, you have created the periodontal disease free area of the United States. I said, I don't believe it. You know, you just haven't marketed it properly enough. But patients are willing, if they get the right education from a hygienist, to say, oh, I need to come 4 times a year. They'll say that to the doctor. How'd you go with the hygienist? Well, he says I've got to come 4 times a year. You know what? He's right. You're at that age now. Yeah, I'm glad he's picked that up. Bang. So there's a lot of wasted opportunity in a dental practice in terms of getting people to come regularly. And having been a dentist, you know, for 35 years, I can still remember some patients diagnosing. I say, oh, we better put a crown on this. And I still got the mirror and the probe in the patient's mouth. And she's going, yeah, let's do it. You know, that's the trust that your regular patients have as well. And so having that backup of making sure that you've got regular patients coming all the time is really, really important. You just can't build it on churn of aligner patients and churn of whitening patients.
Correct. Yeah. No, you have to have a constant flow. And the other thing is like, I learned this lesson. He passed away recently, but there was a dental consultant who I learned a lot from right when I got in the dental industry. And what he taught was 100% case acceptance. So basically the rule of thumb for general dentistry was if you want 100% of the treatment, all you have to do is get people to come back to their hygiene appointment, because over time they will get all the treatment done. You just have to make sure you don't lose them. And then they turn into referrals and they turn into more treatment. But if a new patient comes in and they don't accept, and now we're kind of talking down lower in the patient journey, because before we were talking up high, like answering the phones, converting on the phones, how far are you scheduling out? For the ones that actually come in, if you can get them to accept some kind of treatment, you will get 100%, or either they schedule their next hygiene appointment or accept some kind of treatment. You're going to get 100% of that patient's treatment for the next 10, 20 years. And then you're also going to get all the patient referrals from them as well. And so that's kind of the next area, is moving down into when the patients do come in, are they getting some kind of treatment done? They don't have to get all of it, but getting something done and returning on a regular basis. And I think that's a big, simple way to be really, really successful as well.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed, from visiting the United States, and I did a lot of visits between 2007 and 2019. I think nearly 60 visits to the United States. One of the things was the amount of same day dentistry that is done. So, as opposed to the dentist who pre-blocks and knows pretty well what they're going to do, except for
Yeah.
in those emergency spots, these people had extra chairs, so they say, "Oh, look,
Yep.
I can do that. I'll just park you over here, and I'll be back in and out, and
Yep.
in and out."
Yep.
And up to 40% of their income at the end of the day wasn't in their book at the start of the day. To me, that was really scary. And I don't know what the thought was. Is the thought, oh, I've diagnosed it, I want them to come back, and they walk out of my office and they go, oh, well, there's a dentist over there, I've got the rest of the day off, let me see if I can get that guy to do it. Is that what
Mhm.
happens? Is that they don't build the relationship that I'm the guy, you can wait for me?
So same day treatment's amazing. If you can get same day appointments and same day treatment, you can be very, very successful because to your point earlier, no one wants to go to the dentist. So when they're going, they're assuming that you're going to be able to help them right away. So, and that's not always the case. And we realize that, but that's what patients want. And that's what patients think. After that, to, basically what happens is this, and I've measured this from a data standpoint of like looking at ROI on patients that actually come through the door. So the cost to drive the patient through the door, and then how much treatment they're buying relative to the cost to drive that patient through the door. There becomes a tipping point in every single practice, and we don't know where that is. Like I still haven't figured it out because everybody's different, because every dentist has a different skill level, meaning specifically around speed. And so you, a practice can have 20 new patients a month and do really, really well and have a certain production from those 20 new patients, and then they can go to 30 and maintain that average production, but then all of a sudden at 35 it stops working and the numbers actually start to go down. But for some doctors it might not be 35, it might be 40, and for other doctors it might be 50, right? It's different because it depends on the doctor speed, the team, and the type of treatment that you're actually diagnosing and then doing on those patients. So what happens when you reach that threshold? And I can only look at data. I'm not claiming to know the answers to this, but I do know that it happens with everybody. Is you reach this certain growth level where, one of the ways we measure this is like average production accepted from new patients on first visit. So I see that because that's what you're doing right now and what they're agreeing to do in the near future as well. So if it's really, really high, if you're coming in and that number is $3,000, what that tells me is you don't have enough new patients. You're spending too much time with the patients and you're fixing all of their problems, and you're probably overtreating, not overtreating from a clinical sense, but like solving all their problems at once really, really quickly. And then if that number is $200, then you're going way too fast, and you're going patient to patient to patient, just like we were talking about. And for every doctor and every team, there's like this sweet spot, and I can literally see in the numbers when you've left the sweet spot and went over the top. And the tricky part is every dentist will say, no, 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 we can use more new patients. So there is no, it's really hard to nail down. I'm sure some really, really smart people out there have been able to nail that down and figure that out. I haven't. I just know when to identify it. It's very interesting. That's the best answer I could give you is that, yeah, too many people moving too fast. Patients don't feel they're being seen or being heard, and the dentist is kind of okay with it, not from the sense that they want people to feel that way, but they haven't two more patients waiting for them that they know one of them is going to accept some kind of treatment, so they just keep it moving.
I think you're right. It's a churn factor, and so it's even just on new patients. And the number that I always look at in a practice is one new patient per dentist per day will maintain that practice for um, the patients who leave, the patients who die, and the patients who stay but don't need any more treatment. You get it up to 1.5, that can be very comfortable. But you get it up to 2 new patients per dentist per day, that's really hard to manage if you're diagnosing completely and then trying to get that work done in I always say a 2-year time frame.
Yeah.
What's a new patient's 2-year value? And a new patient's 2-year value might be they might get a few fillings and then they come back for 3 cleans in that 2 years. New patient might be take 2 years to do their restorative, but I always looked at what's the average 2-year value of a new patient. Walk in on a Monday morning, say we got 10 new patients this week. That means we've got $24,300 worth of dentistry coming in from those 10 patients. $2,430 was what a new patient was worth. Because some would do Invisalign, some would just be an XO and
See,
go.
that's the tricky part is like the other thing you have to add into that equation to really solve this. Cause I've really tried to solve this from multiple different angles. Cause I get this asked all the time. How many new patients should I have per doctor, per provider? And it's like, well, it depends. So and it depends on the speed of the clinician, their average treatment presentation size, and then the acceptance of that treatment, right? So meaning if you have one doctor who's always presenting $5,000 in treatment, but they're only getting 20% of that accepted, that's $1,000 worth of treatment versus another doctor who might be only treating, presenting 2,500, but getting 80% of that. They're actually doing more dentistry, right? So that's a nuanced conversation. The speed that they do that treatment, but then also their existing patient base and how healthy they are, and how if they're an older patient base that's been with the doctor for 15 years and they fixed all their problems, then there's almost nothing to do there. It's just, you know what I mean? They're just doing hygiene checks versus a newer practice with newer patients that have only been with them for 6 months or a year or 2 years that you haven't fixed all their problems. You're going to be doing treatment from that patient base for a long time. So it's like your existing patient load comes into factor here as well, because you're going to be doing treatment on them. So and the PMSs are not smart enough yet to be able to help you solve this.
No, you're right. You've got to look at it. We've got a practice that we manage where the owner does 3 days a week and the associate does 3 days a week. They work, it's really a one-man practice split into two.
Yeah.
So we look at the fail to attends and the cancellation rates between the two doctors, and the owner has no fail to attends, and she averages half a cancellation per day. The associate has one fail to attend each day and 1.5 cancellations per day. So he's actually saying, I need more new patients. I need more new patients. So he's seeing them, but they're not coming back. Interesting to look at that. So
it's overtreating more. It's either his bedside or he's overtreating, or not addressing their chief concern, right? So it's like, if that's, I would go and look at it like, how do you, doc, how much treatment are you actually presenting here to these new patients? Older doctors will do this thing where I call whale hunting, where they're like, in their head, they're like, I'm getting 10 new patients a month, and if I can get one of them to say yes to $10,000, I like doing that better than doing $1,000 worth of treatment with all 10 patients. And so and I know what doctors think when they hear this. They're like, well, shouldn't I do what's best for the patient? And it's like, well, yeah, but you got to remember, new patients don't know you. There's a trust factor, and you can destroy that trust factor by overload. And so think of it this way. If you came to me as a dentist and then you said, hey, Gary, tell me a little bit about your marketing, I could overwhelm a dentist in 5 minutes and just being like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. I could do it to the point where they're not going to work with me, because it's just like, oh man, everything's broken, and everything is broken. It's not that I'm being dishonest. There are tons and tons of things that I could give you. But instead, what I do is I say, hey, let's just deal with the chief concern that you're trying to address right now. You want more new patients, right? You have 20, you want to get to 40. Okay, to do that, you're going to have to spend a little bit more money, and you're going to have to be willing to train your team. Are you willing to do that? Yes. Okay, good. So if we can get those two things, now I can start working with them. Now, through trust and working with them over time, I can begin to actually help them solve some of those other issues that they're dealing with, the rest of the treatment plan, so to speak. And they're more motivated to do that because now they're starting to see a little bit of growth. I fixed the cavity. They're out of pain. Whatever. I gave them the single implant, close the gap in their teeth, whatever. Now that trust's there, and now over time, they start to grow. And guess what happens when they start to grow? And now they're staying with me. They start to refer me more dentists. And so now I'm growing more because I kind of slowed down with them a little bit. Dentists have to do the same exact thing with new patients. It's the same thing, and you're going to get more patient referrals. You're going to get more growth, but you got to slow down with people until they trust you a little bit, and you got to earn that trust.
Yeah, trust is the real thing in dentistry, because they can't see what's going on in their mouth. So all they know is at the end of, and again, at the end of the appointment, sometimes it's so quick, all of a sudden they're out on the street, they've got a numb face, they don't know what they've done, and they're $500, they're $1,000, they're $1,500 lighter. And they go, what was that all about? And so, as you said, bedside manner, and one of the things that we like to teach our dentists and our teams to do is they've got to create that urgency and concern so the patient understands exactly what they're coming back for and why they have to come back and what will happen if they don't come back. And if you don't create that, even to say you need to come back for a 6 monthly, because that's the dentist, that's the practice's situation. It's not the patient situation. You've got to tell the patient you need to come back. I'm going to get you back, and we're going to look at that recession, that bone loss, that mobility, that pocketing, that bleeding. Oh, I'm coming back because I've got to get my bleeding checked. They've got to have a reason to come back, and the underlying reason on all of it, Gary, is often you don't want to lose your teeth, do you? Oh, no, of course I don't. Well, this is what we're going to have to do. But some dentists don't even talk about that. In fact, I asked 3 practitioners in one practice the other day. You got a patient with possible sleep apnea. How do you explain that to them? And they all went off into talking about what sleep apnea was. And I said, no. What you're going to tell them is, if you don't get this treated, you're going to die 20 years before you should. In your sleep, in your 50s, you're just going to die. And so if you want to die in your 50s, miss seeing your kids get married, miss seeing your grandkids, we don't need to treat it. And they go, I don't want to die. All right, well, that's how bad you got to talk about the benefit. The benefit of what I'm going to do is you're going to live longer. The benefit of not getting treated, or the downside of not getting treated, is you're going to die earlier. All right, but if you tell them, oh, well, you can have an appliance or you can have a CPAP machine, they don't want either of them. But what they do want is they want to live longer. So again, little things like that. Tell me, we've talked a lot about what happens once the patient actually gets to the practice. What are the things you're seeing that are working to get patients to pick up the phone, to get patients to on their device to contact an office and schedule? What are the website things that are really drawing people to say, oh, this is the dentist for me?
Yeah. So again, it's everybody wants to focus on like marketing and those kind of things, but it's pretty simple, right? What you have to know about dental is that there's short buying cycles and long buying cycles. So the best way to break this down is that short buying cycles is your smaller treatments. So this is your GP, your pedo, those kind of things. These are people who are going to have, like, if I fall and chip my tooth right now as I'm talking to you, I'm going to be in a dental office tonight or tomorrow morning. That's a short buying cycle. If I'm new to town and I decide tomorrow morning to pick up the phone and to schedule to go into a dental office, I'm looking for somebody to answer their phone right then and get in the next day or two and then get my teeth cleaned, right? So dentistry is a short buying cycle. This is similar to a plumber, and I'm not comparing dentists to plumbers, it's similar to pizza, like needing pizza. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just comparing the buying cycles, right? The psychology behind the buying cycle. If my toilet blows up right now and it's leaking everywhere, guess how soon I need a plumber? Right now. I'm not going to schedule, hey, I'm not going to pick up the phone and be like, yeah, I want to schedule a plumber in 6 months. No one does that, right? And same with pizza. If I want pizza, if my daughter just had a birthday party and she wants pizza, I don't call 3 weeks in advance. I call the day of the party, maybe 2 hours in advance, and I get the pizza. And that's how everybody gets pizza. And everybody understands that. That's what patients expect from dentists. So short buying cycles. Now, if you get up into the bigger treatments like aligners and implants, all in four on those are longer buying cycles, much longer. So those are dealt with differently. Those are like buying a house or something like that. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about those. Let's just talk about GP. So GP is short buying cycle. So what can you do to compete in a short buying cycle? Well, all the things that we've already talked about. If you don't answer your phone, the doctor's just going to, or the patient's just going to go down the list and call the next practice. And we've all done this before. If you call a plumber or someone to clean your carpets, they're notorious for not answering their phones too, by the way. You call, they don't answer. Maybe you leave a voicemail, maybe you don't, but you just go on and call the next one until somebody answers. And then you schedule. And then you end up with them. It's whoever answers first. So that's like the biggest thing, is answering the phone when the patient calls. Okay. So now here's the little trick around that. When this patient calls, they're probably going to be calling at the worst times because you are least staffed at these times. So the reason that most people miss calls is not because there's just like billions of phone calls coming in throughout the day. No. It's because the patient flow is usually at the time where you're least staffed. So when your office is least staffed, early in the morning, so you have one person opening up, and there's one person there doing everything. The whole team isn't there yet. You have lunchtime, where you let everybody go at lunch, and you say, "Hey, let's just turn on the voicemail, and we're all going to go get fajitas down the street." That's a problem because that's when everybody is calling. And then in the afternoon, when everybody wants to get home, everybody wants to leave, no one wants to stay around the practice. There's usually the least amount of people in your practice at closing. And that's when most people are calling. Why? Because I'm calling you on the way into school and into work. I'm calling you on my lunch break, and I'm calling you on the way home from work, right? So opening up capacity on phones is about doing it at high usage times, which is morning, lunch, afternoons. Okay, that's number one. So solve that. You can solve, and there's lots of ways to solve that now too. It's like, oh, I have to hire another employee. No. You don't have to anymore. There's a lot of third party. I work with like Reach. It's Reach is a company here in the United States. They'll answer the phone for you, or what they'll do is they'll hire a VA, a virtual assistant, for pennies on the dollar compared to hiring a full-time person in your office. They'll train them fully on your team, PMS, online scheduler, the whole 9 yards. And this person will answer the phones and roll over when your office isn't answering. And that helps a lot. And you're going to pay $1,000 to $2,000 a month for that person. But the amount of new patients that you're saving is through the roof. So that's, and I don't know how it is in Australia, but in the United States, dentists really push back on this. I don't want a virtual person. I want them in the office. Well, fine. Then you're going to pay double or triple. Okay, that's fine. I don't care. So, so then from there, and listen, I've measured this. This is why I'm so flippant about it. I've actually measured it. The virtual person can convert at almost the same rate as your office can, as long as you train them. Simple. Okay. So now let's move on. So what are other ways? So you want to have an online scheduler. Online schedulers are huge. It saves you a ton of time. However, online schedulers can absolutely nuke your new patient flow. So how do they nuke your new patient flow? So it's like a blessing and a curse, right? Well, here's what happens. So you get an online scheduler, you put it on your website, and you're like, this is great. All these people are scheduling, and now I don't have to pay administrators to get these patients in. However, the PMSs break a lot. The practice management softwares break, and meaning the online schedulers will go down. And for whatever reason, the online schedulers always just say no available appointments instead of saying we're broken for whatever reason, right? And so here's what happens. And some people, I've seen marketing people get fired over this because they don't know what's going on. A new patient goes to your website, they see an online scheduling book, they go look at it, whether they're using it or not, doesn't matter. They're just seeing if you have availability, and it says no availability. Guess what? They don't call you. They don't text you. They don't email you. They don't nothing. They have no availability. They go to the next dental office. So I've seen new patient numbers just dwindle overnight. It's usually because your online scheduler broke. And you got to check it. You say, well, how do you solve this? Check it all the time. You have to check it every single day. You just have to keep looking at it, make sure it's up. Hopefully in the future they solve this, but right now that's the state of where it's at. Okay, what's the other thing? Online chats are great. So online chats are amazing. You can answer questions, but you got to have somebody who knows what they're doing answering those. You can't just have an online chat and then you follow back up with them 20 minutes later. They've already moved on to the next practice. So got to have somebody who can respond and that can answer questions. Okay. Those are the big things. That's where everything breaks, is through those things. Here's another one. On every website, it says contact us. There's a contact form, right? It's probably on your website. It's on my website. It's on every website. Problem with dental offices is like 6 years ago that got set up to like an info at email that went to Susan at the front desk. Susan has since been promoted or fired, and you've had 6 other Susans, and no one taught her to look at the contact forms on the website. So you go in and you look in your inbox, and you got hundreds of them over the last several years, but no one's responded to them. They're literally going into the abyss. Those that you gotta be able to close that gap. You just have to. You can't have those coming in and not being notified about them.
Yeah, you really important stuff there, Gary. The thing that I like that you said about checking that your online scheduler is actually functioning. One of the things that we find, listening to dental receptionists answering the phones, is that a lot of them don't even know what's on the website. So patients are ringing up asking, "I'm interested in getting implants under my dentures." They go, "I'm not sure we do that," and it's on the website.
Yeah.
So getting they think their job is answer the phone. They've got to have the knowledge of what is actually being used to get people to call the office in the first place. And you're right, getting people who, when there's a difficulty, just at the bottom of the form, if you can't find a time, please call me because I might be able to get you in sooner. That's all you got to say. Please call me on such and such a number, and just put a name. And you put a fake name. Please call Jenny. You've got no Jenny in your office, but when they ring and say, "Hey, I need to talk to Jenny," well, you know that they've come from the page on the website. So, like, bingo, radar's up. You've got a new patient from the website on the phone, which is, again, sometimes that the online scheduler is just to get name and number to call them. "Hey, I see you made an appointment. I just want to make sure that we've got the right time allocated for you. Can you let me know what you're after exactly in case I need to make more time or less time? Just depends." And they love that. They love the fact that you're onto that straight away. Yeah. And the other thing that they love, if they're a new patient, if the dentist can call them or the hygienist and say, "Hey, I see you've got an appointment with me coming up. I'm just ringing up to introduce myself. Is there anything that I need to be alerted to before you come in tomorrow?" I go, "Oh, gee," they get off the phone. They go, "That was the dentist. That was actually the dentist called me." And everybody in the office goes, "Oh, my dentist never does that."
Yeah.
That's selling the sizzle before the barbecue's happening.
Yep, that's a good way to put it. 100%.
Yeah. So there's lots of stuff to do. I just wanted to correct you on a presumption that you made at the start that because I was a dentist that I had this interest in dentistry. I was just told that because I was smart I should become a doctor or a dentist or a vet, and I just ruled out being a vet because patients can't tell you what's wrong with them. They also can't tell you if they're getting better.
Yeah. The best business to be in is supplements for your dogs, right? Because it makes the owner feel better 100% of the time, and doesn't matter if they work or not.
I'd tell you, I just did a house sit for some people, and they didn't tell me their dog needed eye medication. I'm going, no way I'm putting medication in these dogs' eyes. I need to put medication in my own eyes. I'm not sticking my fingers in their eyes and then in my own eyes. Guess what? Funny. 10 days of people are away, no medication on the dogs. Guess what happened to their eyes? They got better on their own.
Oh, man. It's hilarious.
See, they came home and they go, "Gee, their eyes are looking good." I said, "Aren't they? Gee, they've been really good." Dogs can't tell them, but that's funny. Anyway, that's that. Tell me, how do you? What's the big ROI? I know it's different for different practices, different staff. You've told me that the big ROI is, and that's making sure that you got the right people answering your phone and converting. Yeah. But you're right. A lot of dental practices don't measure how much more traffic's coming in, and so they come to you and say, "We're not getting any more patients." But you can show them the data of how many times the phone's not been answered, how many times the phone has been answered, and it's just been because somebody at the front desk says, "Well, I get paid the same whether they make an appointment or not," and so they're not even incentivizing the phone answerer.
Yeah. So the biggest ROI in dental, it depends what you want, right? So it's like, do you want short-term ROI or long-term ROI? Do you want a recurring business model or do you want a sales business model? So what most dentists don't realize is that when they got into dental, they actually got into multiple different opportunities for different business models. So what's a recurring business model? A recurring business model is something that repeats, right? So it's something that somebody buys over and over and over again. And think like Netflix, your Netflix account. So every month you pay $30 for your Netflix account. That's how GP is, and the reason that it's recurring is because they're coming back every 6 months to the hygiene schedule. And as long as you keep them there, then you're going to get all that treatment. Now, when you get up into bigger treatments, so let's use ortho as an example, or full arch or whatever, these are not driven by recurring. You're actually fixing all their problems in one shot, and you're getting the bulk of the money up front, or all of the money up front. And so you're fixing, for an orthodontist, it's like, hey, we're going to fix this all in one go, and you're going to pay me $5,000 to $7,000, and that's it. Like, you're done. Like, there's no, unless they stop wearing their retainer, you don't have nothing else to give them, nothing else to treat them for. Same with full arch and implants. Like, once you fix the underlying problem all the way and you give them all new teeth, there is no more problems to fix. So really the game there is, how do you get the most people to say yes possible to the treatment that you're recommending? So it's not a recurring model. It's actually a sales model. And so most dentists don't realize that they have two of these going on in their practice at the same time. One is an ROI from long term, meaning you're just trying to get the patient to stay with you as long as possible. And the ROI compounds over time. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And they refer more people, which means it just, the ROI gets better and better and better. And the other one is you're just trying to get as many yeses as possible. And that game resets every single month. Okay. So every single month the game resets. And a lot of people are doing both at the same time, but they don't even realize that they're in two different business models, and they're just trying to make it work. So that it depends on what you want. It depends on what kind of business you want and how you want to structure it to be able to make this work for you. So that's kind of how I think it through ROIs. One short term, one you're going to get all the ROI up front, but then nothing on the back end. The other one, you're not going to really get a lot of ROI up front, but you're going to get along over long periods of time.
I really enjoyed, I was in my own practice for 28 years, same location, which was really weird. The day I left there, I thought that was more than half my life. And I thought I haven't lived in a house that long, 28 years. But this was the same location. We grew within that building, but it was just a weird sort of feeling. But we kind of had a bit of both. But I knew that I enjoyed the big cases, but I did enjoy having patients that were with me for that whole 28 years. And in fact, one of the practices, I acquired my neighbor's practice. When I say my neighbor, like in the building next door, in the suite next door, he retired, and it was his father's practice before that. So I had patients that have been coming, not to that office because he'd relocated into that building, but to that practice since the Second World War. And so patients that have been loyal to that, his father, then him, and then me, the neighbor,
That's
taking
crazy.
over. But the funny thing was that in the 18 years that I saw those patients before I left, some of them said, those two blokes, they never said boo to us, but the customer service that you gave to us, you were interested in our gardening, you're interested in our hobbies, you're interested in our tennis, all that sort of stuff. That's what kept those people coming. And I think, when I looked at dentistry as an undergraduate and then as a new graduate and thinking of specializing, I thought it's too narrow to narrow it down. You can get very narrow. But I've got a friend who's in a country town. He reckons he's seen a third of the people in that country town, but he only does extractions. That's all he does. That kind of drive me nuts.
I've met with some doctors that are very, very successful that do simple extractions, and how they broke it down with me was like, Gary, the production per chair hour is through the roof on these because of how long it takes me and how much I'm actually getting. And they're largely covered by insurance and stuff like that. So it's like, it's easy to get a yes. It's easy to do, and you do it rather quickly. And I can do tons of them. And my production per chair time is through the roof. So it makes a lot of sense. So anyways, it's very interesting how, just changing your perception and changing how you track things and what you want can give you a different outcome.
Yeah, I hated extracting teeth out of my own patients, because I tried to save their teeth, and then all of a sudden, something that you've been working on trying to save for years and years, and it has to go. And my wife said, "Well, thank goodness you weren't a doctor. Imagine telling someone they're going to die. You're getting upset at losing a tooth. Imagine if they're going to lose a life." Gary, a couple of things before we go. Google reviews. How important are Google reviews?
If there was one thing that I was going to, somebody came to me and said, "Tell me to do one thing around marketing," and I could only pick one thing, I'd pick Google reviews. And the reason why is Google reviews impact everything in your business. And when I say everything, I mean literally everything. There's nothing that Google reviews does not touch. So If you want to rank better on Google, you need more Google reviews. If you're running a bunch of marketing, Google reviews influence all of your marketing. It doesn't even matter if it's postcards, televisions, anything. Think about it. If you get a postcard in the mail for anything, and you get a business and you're like, this business looks good, what's the first thing you're going to do? I'll look them up on Google and look at the reviews on them. So it impacts all of your marketing. Your ROI on all of your marketing is going to go up. It also impacts your patient referrals and your doctor referrals. If you're going to refer to a doctor, if I said, hey, Dr. David, I want you to go find a new doctor to refer to, or a doctor reaches out to you and says, hey, start referring to me, what's the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to go look them up online. You're going to look at their Google reviews. So that really influences that. Also, patient referrals. If I said, hey, David, you need to go check out this dentist, they're amazing, or check out this restaurant. So when you come to California, go check out this restaurant, it's amazing. First thing you're going to do is you're going to look them up on Google. So it impacts literally everything in your business. Not only that, if I said, hey, you should go work at an office, Dr. David, you should become an associate at such and such office, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go look at their Google reviews. It literally impacts everything in your business, like from every which way. Like, give me something in your business, it will, like, everything. So I can go on and on and on about that. So the goal with Google reviews is get as many as you can. And you say, well, the next question is like, how many should I get, Gary? Here's the honest truth of it. It depends. I work with dental offices in Idaho. That's a smaller market in the United States. And 100 Google reviews in those towns is pretty good because everybody has 20 or 30. Then I work in other areas where 1,000 Google reviews is not that many because everybody has 2,000 Google reviews. So it really depends on your market. The goal should be the number one. You want to be the number one rated dentist on Google. In America, when it comes to marketing, you're not allowed to make claims that aren't true. Okay, you're just not allowed to, which is the basic common sense rule, right? And so what a lot of dentists do is they'll say number one rated dentist on Google. Well, are you the number one rated dentist on Google? Can you quantify that? The easiest way to quantify that and not get in trouble for it is you have 1,000 and everybody else has 500, right? And you have the most in your market or in your city. You use that in all of your marketing. It's very powerful. Number one rated dentist on Google. Patients love that. It's very easy for them to understand. We have the most Google reviews. There's a reason for that. So then the next question that everybody asks me is, Gary, well, how do I get to be number one on Google? Here's where everybody makes a mistake. They try to pay their team. They try to pay their patients. Don't pay your patients. Pay your team. What I mean by that is that people go, dentists do this all the time. I'll give you a $5 Starbucks card if you leave a Google review. Don't do that. Number one, it's against the terms of service on Google. But number two, you're going to tick a patient off and you're going to ask them, and then they're going to go, okay. And they're going to go on Google and they're going to put a Google review like this. Don't go to this dentist. They literally pay everybody for these positive reviews. These are all fake reviews. They all were paid. They even offered me a $5 Starbucks card, and they have a picture of them holding up a $5 Starbucks card. And guess what that does? It casts doubt on all your good Google reviews. One bad review like that can undo all of your other reviews. So what you want to do is you want to incentivize your team, and you want to make a game of it. So you want to say, hey, this month we want to try to get 200 Google reviews. We see 600 patients a month in total. I want 100 of those. And if you can do this, team, well, you can do it with one or two people or however you want to do it, where I'm going to give you X bonus. And guess what? They will figure out how to go get those Google reviews from those patients. And then the next month you do it again. And the next month you do it again. You can make it bigger, smaller. Eventually you kind of have to stop doing that because all of your patients have left you Google reviews. They can leave you Google reviews, right? So then you kind of have to slow that down. But to get it up off the ground so you can compete, that's the best way to do it. And then you should be focusing on that every single month, now, forever, because it's going to impact every part of your business.
Yeah, very good advice. And you're right. You can never have too many Google reviews because no matter how many you've got, somebody's going to want to read as many as you've got. So, the thing I like about Google reviews, and I don't leave many, mainly when I dine out, but I also live in the country, so it's a long way to drive to a restaurant. But when I leave them, I still get Google sending me an email saying your review is now up to 10,000. Your photo's been seen by 100,000 people. I go, which photo? It's like, oh, that one from a year ago. Yeah, so I like that they stroke me as well as a reviewer. Lastly, social media. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got Twitter. Some people don't know how that works. TikTok. Some people are scared of that. What's your take on social media, Gary?
Yeah, so social media is extremely powerful. So it basically takes so Google reviews is like the first version of the web. So it's like web 1.0, right? And that was cool because you could amplify the voice of one person. So meaning I could, before Google reviews and before Google, if you had a happy patient, they could only tell so many people. They could only tell 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, right? And you were lucky to get that. With Google reviews, I can now have hundreds of people reviewing one happy patient every single month. So that's pretty cool. Social media is that on steroids, where I could have one person, or you could be one person touching millions of people. So it's extremely powerful if you use it properly, but it can also work against you as well, just as fast. Okay. And so what I mean by that is you have to want to be on social media. And there's two different ways that you think about social media. There's the ad side, and then there's the content side. So the ad side, you can actually go hire a company like us, in my company, and we can go run ads for you, and we can attract people, right? We've all been on social media before, and an ad pops up. That's pretty straightforward, right? And the cool part about it is you're really building. You can target people based off of demographics. So you can take your existing patient base of all the patients that you already love and that you want to see more of, and you can tell Facebook or Instagram or these other platforms, I want more people like this, and it will go and match more people like that. Similar demographics, similar interests, similar income, similar households, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty cool. Now, when you post content, you have to actually want to post content. So you don't want me coming on your platform and me making videos about your practice, right? So you really have to have a doctor or somebody who has a vested interest in the practice that wants to be the face of it. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. This has been one of the harder things to scale inside of dental. And the reason it's hard to scale, even for the big DSOs that have 1,000 locations or 2,000 locations, they struggle scaling it because dentistry is local. So, meaning you got to have the dentist in that local market that wants to do this. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense to do it. It's not like my business and your business, right? Like you could help anybody in the world. I can help. The reason I'm doing your podcast right now, even though you're in another country, I can work with anybody in the whole world. Like this message is good for everybody everywhere. But if I was a dentist, this would be the biggest waste of time speaking to people in Australia about me being a great dentist. It doesn't actually help me. I only want to serve the people in my little 3, 4, 5 mile radius pocket. So creating content, it gets really, really tricky. First of all, you got to want to do it. Second, you got to spend a lot of time. Now, I'm not against it, but it's called building your personal brand. I've actually done this. So the reason you've met me and the reason you even know I exist is because I built my personal brand. Now, you happen to see it in a Facebook group, but I got thousands of followers on Facebook. I have like 15, 20,000 on Instagram. I have like 50,000 on YouTube, and I have like 100,000 on TikTok. And I purposely built out my personal brand because it does attract, you're a dentist to me. Dentists find me and dentists want to talk to me and they ask me questions. And that's what I want to get out there. So building a personal brand is amazing. It's extremely powerful. However, it takes a long time, a lot of energy, and a lot of time investment. And you gotta be willing to stand in front of the camera and talk for a lot, a lot, and a lot. Just being frank, most dentists, that's not what they want to do. That's not what they're known for, right? And so there are exceptions to the rule, but most dentists are just like, you know what, that's not my thing. And I totally get that. Like I respect that a lot. So it really depends on what you want to do. Some of it you can hire out, some of it you can get support around, but some of it you're just going to have to be the face of it, and you got to be okay with that. And not all dentists are. So it's really just about knowing your options and then choosing the road that you want to go down. Some dentists are like, I want to do this. I'd rather be a social influencer than a dentist, and that's great. And there's opportunities for people like that.
Yeah, there's plenty, and I guess the thing that comes to mind when you talk about social media is to make sure that you get the advice, one, that's going to work for your business, and two, that's going to work for you, the dentist,
Yes.
doing the marketing, because there's no point spending a lot of time marketing in MySpace. It's it's gone. You've got to be in the right medium. Gary, we've run out of time. It's been great chatting with you, and we could chat for longer. And I'm sure that we'll be chatting in the Facebook groups that you're in and that I'm in. I tend to back off a little, being
I haven't seen you. I was going to say I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you lately.
No, I'm very guarded. I don't like to push my barrow too hard. Paul's a nice guy, and I like how he runs that Nachos group, and he puts a lot of time into it. But the podcast's been taking a bit of my time. But Gary, just in finishing off, how can anybody watching this podcast get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is smcnational.com. That's my company. You can find my website on there as well, and or on social media, The Gary Bird. Either way is good, and happy to talk. This is all I do, is I talk about this kind of stuff all day, every day.
Lovely. Gary Bird, thanks so much for being on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been a real eye-opener, and I'm sure our viewers and our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. Gary, thanks so much.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.